up, everyone? Welcome to this day in Philly sports history for June 29th, 2024. I'm your host, Jim Montgomery. Welcome to a Saturday edition of the podcast. And let's just all take a collective exhale right now. The news was good for both Bryce. Well, I shouldn't say good, but the best case scenario for both Bryce and Kyle Schwarber. Both of them are on the 10-day IL. And Schwarber seems to be not as serious as Bryce. And Bryce, I don't know. I would hold him out until after the All-Star break because that 10-day IL period takes you like right to the last couple games, the last weekend before the All-Star break. I would hold them both out at this point. But we'll see how they play over the next week or so. Rob Thompson compared Bryce's hamstring to that of Brandon Marsh's, who Brandon Marsh only missed a few games and came back and has been playing well since then. So take that deep breath out. It's not as bad as we thought, which is good. And I think I would, if it was up to me, I would keep them both out till after the All-Star break at this point, especially just the way the pitching staff has been. And I think that's going to be the key to keeping us in it until they both come back. But you don't want to take any chances with a soft tissue injury. And I know everybody was there's something going on with the training staff. If you remember a few years ago, the Eagles had all kinds of soft tissue injuries as well. So I don't know if it's the training staff or what's going on, but it could have been worse, and thank God it's not worse. I'm the huge sigh of relief right there, but still something to kind of monitor and watch. I know everybody was freaking out because Bryce said, I never felt like that, anything like that before. And he never had, I don't think I've ever had a hamstring strain. So I don't know what that feels like, but I would panic too if things started to tighten up like that. So best case scenario, I guess, for both guys. And again, let's just take that. All right, now to the game. And Cristopher Sanchez is an absolute stud. There's no other way to put it. Yes, I know it was the Marlins, but he was just lights out the entire game. Complete game shutout. Phils won 2-0. Had a little bit of trouble getting some offense. And truthfully, though, they were hitting the ball. They just had trouble driving in runners in scoring position because they didn't really have like that guy in the lineup. So somebody's going to have to step up and start doing that. But Johan Rojas, I saw reminiscent of Jason Kelsey's Super Bowl speech. I saw a different man. I feel like he's like, okay, I'm not going back down to the Lehigh Valley. But lots of hustle out there for him, doing the things. He tried to bunt a couple times and really took to heart what Rob Thompson said. So he was doing the things that he said. And Rob Thompson even said, I went up to him and said, hey, do what you were doing in AAA. And it seemed like it worked. I mean, it's a one-game sample size, I know. But let's see what happens. But I do need Mr. Castellanos to start heating up consistently. You're making $100 million. This is your time to shine, buddy. And I think for the next 2 weeks, that's going to be the key. But hopefully, fingers crossed that the prognosis was correct with Bryce and Kyle, and they're able to come back when they do. But I would rather, like I said, if it was up to me, let me know your thoughts on this. But I'd keep them out to the All-Star break at this point, unless you go on like a 6-game losing streak and all of a sudden your lead is 2 games, which I don't see that happening with this pitching staff. But they're back at it today, 4 o'clock. Aaron Nola on the mound for the Phils. We need to get some of that playoff Nola going. All right, I've been talking this week about the John Kruk shirt. John Kruk is my spirit animal from Philly Goat. Go check that out. Buy the shirt. Support the Battle Brothers Foundation, which takes care of our veterans. They do a lot of great things. I've been doing a lot of a little research on the organization, and it's just a great organization. And they do a lot of the unsung things that people don't think about when the veterans come. Everybody's like, "Yeah, I want to hire a vet. I want to hire a vet," but then they don't provide the training. Battle Brothers does that, helps them with PTSD. I told you about with the non-opiate treatments, and then as well as just getting readjusted to civilian life. So the Battle Brothers Foundation is a great organization. If you buy the John Kruk is My Spirit Animal shirt, 10% of your sale will go toward this organization. And of course, This was before the good news broke, but I think this shirt sums it up perfectly. They released a new shirt that I think we all can relate with. I talk all the time about the Sixers being like the crazy ex-girlfriend that always sucks me back in, even though I know what's gonna happen. We all have that with Philly sports, and they have the new. I have a toxic relationship with Philly sports. It's a phenomenal shirt. Go check it out. Use the promo code Jim Montgomery to take 10% off your order. But whether it's the John Kruk is my spirit animal, or I have a toxic relationship with Philly sports, which we all do. That's why you're here. Go check them out. Use the promo code Jim Montgomery for 10% off your order. 10% of your John Kruk is my spirit animal shirt will go toward the Battle Brothers Foundation, they do great things for our vets. All right, kind of a letdown, I think, yesterday with the Flyers first round draft pick. They did trade back a pick and ended up taking Jett Luchanko. What a name, though. What a great name. I hope this kid turns out. It wasn't a splashy pick by any stretch of the imagination, but all reports seem to say he's a solid, polished player that should be able to come in and contribute right away. I think they were trying to move up and then just couldn't get it done. They ended up trading the 32nd pick for a first-round pick next year, and they're kind of loading up for next year's draft, it seems like. They have a ton, I think 3 now, first-round picks for next year. I think they have 3 second-round picks. There is more draft this weekend, but I think the Mishkov coming over kind of raised, at least for me anyway, raised the expectations of what the team was and what they were going to do. And I do think they tried to move up, and the board just kind of did not fall their way. So it's almost like they punted, and they're going to go after it next year, which with 3 first-round picks, you ought to be able to package something and get yourselves high up in the draft. But it looks like the big acquisition this year is going to be Mishkov coming over and playing. But I'm anxious to see what this kid, Jett Luchanko, does. Not a lot of people were like, oh, it's great, but it was sort of solid. And I think, with a team like that, they didn't necessarily reach, but they took someone who can come in and play right away. I'm okay with it. I do think it was pretty cool that Michael Buffer came out and announced the pick. And I always forget that Michael Buffer was from the area, too. So that was always good to hear Michael Buffer. But we'll have more on the Flyers draft as the weekend goes. But sort of a letdown, I guess, so to speak, of what maybe my expectations were. But they got a solid player, and they are in a Howie Roseman-esque move. They're stockpiling draft picks for next year, and they should be, I think, with the way their salary cap is and now the draft, they should be able to sort of eyeing next year's offseason as being major players and getting ready to move into the upper echelon of the NHL. They are buying out Cam Atkinson's final year of his contract, which should free them up some cap space as well. But it's going to be a long road. It's a marathon, not a sprint. There's a ton of mess that they are still sorting through and cleaning up. So once we get there, we'll be all right. But not, like I said, not a splashy move yesterday, but it gets the job done. And kudos and shout out, I completely missed this the other day, to Jeremy Roenick, who was inducted into the Hall of Fame. I only spent 3 years in Philly, but 3 great years, and I feel he's one of those guys that, even though he was only here for a short amount of time, kind of embodied and embraces what Phillies fans, specifically Flyers fans, are all about. So shout out to JR for going into the Hockey Hall of Fame. All right, some more Sixers news yesterday, and they signed David Jones, who was an undrafted free agent out of Memphis, to a 2-way deal. A solid piece. He can shoot. They're going to have they're signing a lot of these 2-way contracts, I think, to kind of have guys that they can call up if need be. But the David Jones move out of Memphis, I think he played at St. John's and somewhere else as well. But a solid piece. It's not like it moves the needle. But I missed this yesterday. The night of the draft, they signed Justin Edwards, who was an undrafted free agent out of Kentucky. Philly guy, went to Imhotep and was a highly recruited high. I think he was a 5-star recruit before going to Kentucky with Calipari. And I actually like this. My brother is a Kentucky guy, so of course, as soon as I saw this the other night, I was talking with him. Very athletic. Should have some high energy. Should be able to contribute almost right away. Will be probably going back and forth between Delaware, but he does have the potential now to be one of those guys, former top prospect, so he has the pedigree, and he's coming home. There's a lot to be said about guys that get to come home and obviously probably play for the team he grew up rooting for. So David Jones and Justin Edwards, undrafted free agents, signed the 2-way contracts for the Sixers. We gear up for the big day tomorrow. 6 p.m. is when they can begin negotiating with free agents. So by the end of next week, the Sixers hopefully will have some semblance of a roster, because right now they have, 5 guys and 4 two-way players. So they almost are there. But I'm anxious and getting excited for probably going to get my hopes up and get let down like I always do. But, hey, at least for the next 24 hours, I can get all pumped up and excited for the Sixers. Eagles announced the Kelly Green jerseys will be coming back Week 9 Sunday Night Football against the Jaguars. And then Week 17 versus the Cowboys. And I'd love that they're doing – I wish they would do it against the Giants, but – Dougie P, I guess they wanted to put him on Sunday Night Football. But the Cowboys game is going to be great. I have a feeling that the division's going to be over by then, and that game really isn't going to mean much. But that, to me, is a childhood memory. The Eagles wearing the Kelly Green jerseys, beating the shit out of the Cowboys when the Cowboys just are no good. That is what I'm expecting to see. So I'm expecting the ultimate throwback in Week 17 this year. I wouldn't mind seeing them also use the Kelly Green helmets with the white and the silver pants that they would wear on the road. I might be in the minority on that, but I always like the white and the silver with the Kelly Green jerseys. But hey, what do I know? All right, Union in action tonight in Montreal. They definitely have some work to do. This should be a game that they should be able to win. So hopefully they can snap that winless streak. I know they had a couple draws in there, but it seems like a while since the Union have won. Still have some work to do in the standings. I think they're 11th or 12th right now in the East. Montreal is below them, so this is a game they should win. Hopefully it's not a sign of that snowball just rolling down the hill. All right, today we're going to go back to 1987. On this day in 1987, the Phillies beat the Pirates in both games of a doubleheader, 6-5 and 11-3. Game 1, Chris Jones hit a home run. Juan Samuel, Mike Schmidt, Luis Aguayo, and Keith Hughes. Remember him? Yeah, neither do I. All hit doubles. Michael Jackson got the win, but Steve Bedrosian was the story as he got the save, and it was his 12th straight save. And actually, he happened to do that in 12 appearances too, but his 12th consecutive save, which set the Major League record for consecutive saves. I know. I thought the same thing. He would run it to 13 before the streak got snapped. But the current record now is 84, set by Eric Gagne. And I think what I forgot was the save didn't start becoming an official stat until 1969. And even then, a lot of your pitchers, even when they were losing, would still go the distance and pitch complete game losses and things like that. So it wasn't until like the 90s, mid to late 90s, that you started to have guys. I mean, you had guys like Lee Smith and Jeff Reardon who were dedicated closers, but it wasn't until later on when the game started to change somewhat that you had your dedicated closers who that was all they did. That's all they pitched. So it was different back then, but on this day in 1987, Steve Bedrosian set a Major League Baseball record with his 12th consecutive save. He would take it to 13 before he finally lost one. And he ended up leading the league in saves in 1987 with 40 and won the Cy Young. And this still just is bizarre to me. It was the closest National League vote ever for the Cy Young. 57 votes to 55 over Rick Sutcliffe. And then Rick Russell, I think it's Russell or Ruschel, I've always pronounced it both ways, but Rick Russell had 54 votes. So it was a three-man race for the Cy Young. And somehow Steve Bedrosian won a Cy Young, and I think it might be the worst Cy Young Award winner ever. But what are you going to do? But on this day in 1987, he saved his 12th consecutive game, setting the major league record. He'd run it to 13 before he lost it, and he was one of the guys that got the most pushback, I think, from the nickname tournament. His name was Bedrock. Didn't make the tournament though. I mean, yeah, he won a Cy Young, but it was the most fugazi Cy Young ever. And he didn't really do much after that. So, I mean, he is second or third, or I guess second on the Phillies all-time save list. However, Jonathan Papelbon, who was not here that long, is our all-time save leader. So, make of that what you will. But on this day, Cy Young Award winner Steve Bedrosian saved his 12th consecutive game, setting the major league record. And now that's just not even a drop in the pan at this point, because Eric Gagne has the record with 84 straight. I don't think anybody's ever going to touch that. That's just absolutely ridiculous. All right, speaking of the nickname tournament, Bedrock did not make the field of 64. However, let's recap yesterday's matchups. And out of the Ben Franklin region, Dude/Nails knocked off Mega John with 67% of the votes. I know, Mega John is one of those ones. It's still a relatively young name. If we do this nickname tournament next year, guarantee you it does better. But Nails/Dude is moving on out of the Ben Franklin region, our 8th seed. And then in our Balboa region, the heavyweight matchup met our expectations. It was the chairman of the boards, the number 6 seed, slightly edging Lefty with 57% of the vote to move on in the Balboa region. So it's Nails/Dude and chairman of the boards moving on in our tournament. That leads us to today's matchup. Sticking in the Balboa region, the number 4 seed, the Hammer, takes on the number 13 seed, Big Red. Let's start with the 4 seed, the Hammer, left winger Dave Schultz, who is just another one of those guys that this nickname fits him. Like, I cannot even look at him without thinking the Hammer. He got the nickname for obvious reasons, just because of his aggressive style of play. One of the greatest enforcers in NHL history. In 1974-75, he set the NHL record that still stands today with 472 penalty minutes. Spent 5 years in Philly, won 2 Stanley Cups, and really set the tone and grew that Broad Street Bullies team and gave them that edge that helped them to win the 2 Stanley Cups. I've actually met Dave Schultz a couple times. 100% fits the nickname, the Hammer. Very intimidating, I must say, when you meet him. So the number 4 seed, Dave the Hammer Schultz, is taking on Big Red Andy Reid. Obvious reasons for his nickname. He's big and has red hair. Sometimes nicknames are just that simple. Big Red. Big guy, red hair. There you go. But he did, I'll give him credit for helping to resurrect the Eagles after the end of the Ray Rhodes era. And really, probably the greatest coach possibly in NFL history, certainly the greatest coach in Eagles history. 14 years, 130 wins, 5 NFC championship games, 1 Super Bowl. He is our winningest coach when it comes to wins, most playoff wins, both of those by a lot. He is third in winning percentage if you take out the guys that only coached 1 or 2 games, but third behind Nick Sirianni. So, I mean, if Sirianni is still up there after this season, maybe this is an Andy Reid post, but maybe we can start to give Sirianni the credit he probably deserves, but we'll revisit that at a later date. And then Greasy Neal is number 2 then. But it's Big Red, the number 13 seed, taking on Dave the Hammer Schultz in the Balboa region, our 4 seed. So make sure to get your votes in there. 267-495-8531. That gets you into the Back to the Future voice and text line. You can also hit me up on social media, Jimbo_Mont at Twitter and TikTok, at Philly Jimbo on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, email me, text me, leave a comment wherever you are. But I ask you all to just take a minute and subscribe to the YouTube channel. If everybody who is listening or watching subscribes to the YouTube channel, we'll be in good shape. And that's at Jimbo_Mont. Our second matchup of the day, the number 5 seed, the Big Dipper, taking on the number 12 seed, J-Roll. And neither one of these guys need much introduction. Let's start with our number 5 seed, the Big Dipper, Wilt Chamberlain. I took the stilt out. We're not going to call him the stilt because he actually hated the stilt. He hated anything that had to do that was like a derogatory thing because of his height. So we're going to go with the Big Dipper because the Big Dipper is a cooler nickname anyway. And really, Wilt the Stilt, he hated that. So in honor of Wilt Chamberlain, we're going to call him the Big Dipper. And that was his preferred nickname anyway. He was called the Big Dipper, which I don't understand this at all. But the Big Dipper because of the way he dipped his head when he had to walk through doorways because he was so tall. But also because just like the constellation, the Big Dipper dips below the horizon, he felt it was a more appropriate nickname for him, and certainly played like the Big Dipper. Just if you ever see some of the old clips of him, he is his 1967 NBA champion. His number 13 is retired at the Wells Fargo Center. He's a Philly legend, 10,000, and we'll leave it at that. Arguably, can make the argument, and I know some people have out there, especially some of my listeners, you can make the argument that he is the greatest of all time. I'm not getting into that debate today, but Wilt Chamberlain, the Big Dipper, is our number 5 seed. He's taking on the 12 seed J-Roll, and it is a play on his name, and it is one of the cooler ones, J-Roll, and it's better than his initials, but everybody knows J-Roll. I mean, nobody ever says, oh, well, Rollins. Everybody says Utley or Howard, but it's always J-Roll. I don't think I call him Jimmy Rollins ever. It's, hey, J-Roll. But he was the heart of those 07 to 11 teams. Won the MVP in 2007, 3-time All-Star. He is the Phillies' all-time leader in hits and doubles, and in my opinion, a Hall of Famer. Hopefully the baseball writers will agree with me at some point. Certainly has the nod over Chase Utley, in my opinion. But it's your turn. Who has the better sports nickname? Is it the Big Dipper or is it J-Roll out of the Schuylkill region? And then in our Balboa region, it's the Hammer, the number 4 seed, taking on the number 13 seed, Big Red. Lots of heavy hitters today. The matchups are starting to get good, but make sure to get your vote in. You can call and text the Back to the Future voice and text line 267-495-8531. That'll get you in. Get that, anything else Philly sports related off your chest. What are your feelings about the Flyers draft? Are you looking forward to the Sixers? How long would you keep Bryce and Schwarber out? Get all of that. It's all fair game on the Back to the Future voice and text line, as well as my social media. But get those votes in. The number 4 seed, the Hammer, and the number 13 seed, Big Red, in the Balboa region. And then the number 5 seed, Big Dipper, and the number 12 seed. Not sure why that's going off. Sorry about that. And the number 12 seed, J-Roll, out of the Schuylkill region. Get your votes in, and I apologize for my alarm. I don't know why I had it set for that time. But anyway, get your votes in. Phil's back in action again tonight. Hopefully Danny Briere has some tricks up his sleeve for day 2 of the draft. But it's a fun time. Lots going on. Hopefully the Union get back on track too. It's going to be a cloudy day, but it's not going to rain. It doesn't look like until later. Tomorrow's going to be the rainy day, so get out and enjoy. This has been This Day in Philly Sports History for June 29th, 2024. I'm Jim Montgomery, and until next time, I'll see you when I see you.